Imagine a pill taken just once a week that in a year-long trial was linked to a 5% gain in lean tissue, a major drop in pain, and better quality of life in post-menopausal women. That's the headline coming out of the Pearl Rapamycin trial, and it's lighting up longevity podcasts everywhere. But here's the part nobody on those podcasts wants to say out loud. The trial's main goal actually failed, and the dramatic muscle result came from just 8 women. So before you call a telehealth clinic, let's look at what Pearl really showed and what it didn't. Hey everyone, today we're unpacking Pearl, the participatory evaluation of aging with rapamycin for longevity. It's the longest randomized, placebo-controlled trial of rapamycin in healthy adults ever published, and it dropped in the journal Aging in April 2025. Rapamycin is one of the most hyped molecules in the entire longevity space, so a real human trial is a big deal. But the way the results are being reported online is, frankly, a mess. We're going to walk through what was measured, what worked, what didn't, who responded, and what any of this means for a normal person who isn't running a longevity clinic. And because rapamycin is a prescription immunosuppressant, not a supplement, we'll be very clear about the safety side too. Quick origin story because it's wild. In the 1970s, scientists scraped soil from Easter Island, Rapa Nui, and found a bacterium producing a molecule that killed fungi. That molecule became rapamycin. It was approved in 1999 to stop the immune system from rejecting transplanted organs. Then in 2009, researchers at the National Institute on Aging showed that rapamycin extended the lifespan of mice, even when given late in life. That was the moment the longevity world fell in love with it. The mechanism, rapamycin inhibits a protein complex called mTOR, which regulates cell growth and nutrient sensing. Dialing mTOR down in animals mimics some of the effects of caloric restriction. The big bet behind Pearl is that you can get those benefits in humans with a low weekly dose, without the side effects transplant patients deal with on daily dosing. Pearl was randomized, placebo-controlled, and lasted 48 weeks. 114 people finished the trial, ages 50 to 85. 3 groups placebo, 5 milligrams of rapamycin per week, and 10 milligrams per week. And here's a twist, the rapamycin wasn't the brand name Rapamune, it was compounded rapamycin, which the trial's own data show produced roughly 1/3 the blood concentration of the commercial version. Remember that detail, it matters for interpretation. The trial was also decentralized. Participants did their own DXA scans and blood work locally. It was partly crowdfunded. And it was sponsored by AgelessRx, a telehealth company that prescribes off-label rapamycin. That's a real conflict of interest, and it's worth saying out loud. Here's the thing almost every viral clip leaves out. The primary endpoint of Pearl, the outcome the whole trial was designed to test, was change in visceral fat, the deep belly fat that wraps around your organs. Result, no significant change in any group. P-value of 0.942, that's about as flat as data gets. So if you've seen a headline saying rapamycin melts belly fat, the trial it's referencing literally showed the opposite. Everything else we're about to talk about comes from secondary outcomes, which in research speak means interesting but hypothesis generating, not conclusive. Now the result that did get attention. In women taking 10 milligrams per week, lean tissue mass went up about 2.5% at 24 weeks and roughly 5% at 48 weeks compared to baseline. The mean difference versus placebo and 5 mg was statistically significant, with a large effect size. And self-reported pain in that same group dropped sharply, p less than 0.001 at 48 weeks, along with improvements in social functioning, overall quality of life, and osteoarthritis scores. Men weren't left out entirely. They showed a dose-dependent improvement in bone mineral content at 10 mg. The 5 mg group reported better general health and emotional well-being, but no lean mass change. But and this is critical, the 10 mg female group had only 8 women in it. 8. That's not nothing, but it is not the foundation of a treatment recommendation. The signal could reflect real muscle preservation, or it could reflect reduced inflammation, fluid shifts, or just statistical noise in a small group. Even Matt Kieberline, one of rapamycin's biggest scientific champions, has said Pearl is underpowered to prove efficacy. This is actually the most solid part of Pearl, because safety was what the trial was really designed to measure. At these intermittent low doses, adverse events were similar across groups. No meaningful differences in liver, kidney, or metabolic markers. Mouth ulcers, a classic rapamycin side effect, were actually slightly more common in the placebo group, likely because the compounded version produced lower blood levels. And infection rates were a touch lower in the rapamycin arms than placebo. So at this dose, in this population over a year, the drug looked tolerable. That is genuinely useful information. It is not the same thing as saying it's safe for you, long-term at home, without supervision. Because this is a prescription drug, let's be direct. Rapamycin is teratogenic, absolute no-go in pregnancy or if you're trying to conceive. It's an immunosuppressant, so you don't start it before surgery, during an active infection, or with active cancer. It can raise triglycerides and LDL and worsen glucose control. It interacts with grapefruit, many statins, antifungals, macrolide antibiotics, and several antivirals. The compounded versions sold through longevity telehealth clinics are a lightly regulated market. If you are seriously considering this, please talk to a qualified physician who actually understands the pharmacology, not a website that prescribes it after a 10-minute form. Get your baseline lipids, fasting glucose, and HbA1c checked, and recheck them on the drug. Here's how I'd summarize Pearl. It is the best human rapamycin data we have, and that's exactly why we need to be careful with it. The primary outcome failed. The exciting muscle and pain results were in a subgroup of 8 women on the higher dose. The safety profile at this dose looks reasonable for a year. None of that proves rapamycin extends human health span, and none of it justifies a prescription drug for a healthy person on the strength of a secondary analysis. If you want to chase the Pearl effect without the prescription, the boring stuff still wins by a mile. Resistance training 2 to 3 times a week. Adequate protein, especially if you're a post-menopausal woman, that alone outperforms most pharmacology for lean mass. Sleep, aerobic fitness. These have larger, better replicated effects on muscle, pain, and quality of life than anything in this trial, and they have no contraindications. Pearl is a fascinating signpost. It is not a prescription. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.